of the last months, it was said to several of those who were met at a moment of poignancy, emptiness, ripeness in their life. You have to make God real. Now this phrase has been used over the years. It may have even been said to you. But to many people, God is a dirty word. But it doesn't have the same impact, the same meaning to say you have to make self real. You have to make cosmic consciousness real. You have to make the divine real. God, the word God, is evocative, unlike self or cosmic consciousness or the divine. It's evocative. It gets in there. It evokes something, even if it's anger. But what does that phrase mean for you? There's a story about a poor Jewish widow who had 7 sons she had to feed. She had no means of support. The eldest of her children was aged 10. His name was Joseph. Now, Joseph was an extraordinary child because at that very young age, his level of devotion and piety to God in the form of the rituals, the customs dictated by his Jewish faith was amazing for one so young. Every day, Joseph would go to the marketplace and he would sweep the stalls of the stallholders, and he would make sure their baskets of fruit and vegetables were full for those who came to buy. He was such a good worker that the stallholders would give Joseph a bag of rice, a few apples, a few oranges, and even on special occasion some dates and nuts to take back to his family. Now one day, when Joseph was in the marketplace, he happened to overhear a conversation with one of the stallholders. A stranger had come into town and was asking where a certain family resided. Joseph ran up and said, "That's my family, that's my family." And taking the stranger by the hand, he said, "Let me take you back to our house." Now when they arrived at their house, the stranger handed a letter to Joseph's mother, and then he left without saying a word. And when the letter was opened, Joseph's mother gasped, "Oh!" And all the children said, "Mother, what is it? What's happened?" And the mother explained. This letter says that in the far-off land of Cairo, Joseph and his family lived in Tangiers, a relative of your father has passed away without anyone to pass on his wealth to. So it has been left to us. But how can I go to Cairo? I have 7 children. I cannot leave you behind. How could I travel across the desert? Joseph said, "Let me go." His mother said, "No, no, The desert is full of dangers, vast expanses, wild animals, brigands, robbers. But Joseph said, remember, we have faith in God. Every Saturday, on the Sabbath day, Joseph would take his brothers to the synagogue. Every evening before the Sabbath, he would lay out the candles and the challah and go through the ritual, saying the prayers to welcome the great Mother Sabbath. He said, Mother, let me go. So, with great reluctance, the mother went to the leader of the caravan that was to leave for Cairo. But of course he wanted an exorbitant amount of money for the boy to travel. But she sold everything that she could to raise enough. But then, when she went to hand the money to the leader of the caravan, she said, now, you have to promise me that you will allow my son Joseph to fulfill his obligations of the Sabbath day. We always rest on this day. Oh, said the caravan, I can't do that. We're crossing the desert. Every moment is precious. He said, but if you pay me, and he named another extraordinary sum, I'll do it. Now, the mother had spent everything that she had. All that she had left was her gold wedding ring. So she went and sold her last valuable possession to pass to the leader of the caravan, who promised that he would rest for that day. So Joseph set out on the caravan, and for 6 days they travelled across the desert wastes, the camels tramping slowly through the sandy wastes. And then it came to the eve of the Sabbath day. And Joseph went to the leader of the caravan and said, tomorrow we rest, yes, because tomorrow is the Sabbath. What are you talking about? Said the leader of the caravan. I made no promises about this. We're in the desert. We have to get to our destination as fast as we can. I remember no promise. Joseph was devastated. But when it came to the evening time, and it was time to bring out the accoutrements to welcome in the Sabbath day, again Joseph begged the leader of the caravan, but he refused to acknowledge his promise. He blatantly said to Joseph, what are you going to do then? Now Joseph looked at the sandy wastes. Nothing in sight for miles and miles. But in his heart, it was the eve of the Sabbath, holy beyond holy for him. He said to the leader of the caravan, leave me here. And this is what they did. Joseph watched as the camels trudged through the desert, leaving him alone in this vastness, this vast, empty wasteland. But he knew that he had to build a fire quickly to keep away the wild animals of the night. And so he hastily gathered together some brush, and in so doing he got out all the trappings of that which was needed to begin his rituals. And then he began. But just as the fire was lit, and he'd laid out all that was necessary for his rite, he saw sand, a dust cloud in the distance, and to his great horror, approaching him was a huge lion. Now Joseph froze, praying, recognizing that this was his last moment, that he was about to be devoured. But to his great surprise, the great beast came towards him and sat down at his feet. Now Joseph trembled, but then as the lion gazed at him, he saw that there was no hunger in its eyes. They were benign, peaceful. So he went about continuing the preparations for his ritual. He began to intone the prayers that welcome in Mother Sabbath. And all the while, the lion lay there at his feet quietly. Now throughout the whole night, Joseph fulfilled his obligations. And in the following day, when he intoned the prayers, the lion remained in the same position. After this celebratory day was over, a day in which Joseph felt peace, the same peace that he felt when he was at his mother's table, lighting the candles, welcoming in the only day of rest that he had, knowing that that day of rest allowed him to work hard for the remainder of the week. But when all was done, and it was obvious that the lion was sent to him, he went, put his arm around its neck, fondled its mane, and the lion flicked his tail on his back to indicate to Joseph to climb on. And when he did, the lion bounded off across the sandy wastes. It stopped briefly at an oasis where they were able to drink fresh water and eat some figs from a tree there. And then the lion bounded on, and before long, there in the distance was the dust of the caravan. In just one day, the lion had traversed and caught up. Now, you can imagine the shock and horror on the faces of those who were traveling in the caravan. The leader of the caravan was aghast when the lion stopped in front of him with Joseph on its back. In that very moment, the leader of the caravan fell down in front of Joseph, inviting him to be the leader of the caravan, returning all the money that his mother had given him, and making an oath that very moment that he would never ever break a promise again. And he never did. Well, the lion with Joseph on its back led the caravan to the land of Cairo. And it rode majestically down the middle of the streets, with people running in every direction to find a hiding place, until it came to the door of the place that was denoted on the letter that the mother had written to those who had initiated the letter to her. Joseph alighted and, carrying his letter in, came out of the house with 2 bags of silk. He climbed on the lion's back, farewelled the caravan, and the lion bounded off in the direction of Tangiers. In what seemed but a moment, they arrived back of the gates of this walled city, and the lion stopped. And Joseph knew it was time to farewell this great and blessed gift. Alighting, embracing the lion, he returned to his mother's house, where there was great rejoicing, because in the rest of their lives they would never be poor again. And on every Sabbath day, when the family gathered, Joseph told his story again, the story of the blessed grace of the lion. This word, God, all of us, each of us, have had moments of desolation, emptiness, poignant moments. Has there ever been one in your life when there has not arisen in you the lion, in whatever form it has manifested at any particular time? Has there ever been a moment in those instants when something has not arisen for you? And if we did not have those empty, poignant moments, would we ever come to know that the lion is always there? And we have the possibility of living a life holding our lion's mane. What is the lion for? What is God? That dirty word for you?
Back to church.
And where is that church? Right on. Coming back from a journey that Gail and I made from Brisbane, driving a new car, we listened to a disc by Andrew Harvey of the life of the great Sufi poet Rumi. Now we can pick up any of these books, St. Teresa of Avila, Rumi, Hafiz, Teresa of Avila, there's umpteen of them out there. Their lives have been ones of tragedy, trauma, and yet they brings tears to our eyes. Passionate poetry. They have different names. Jesus, God, the Beloved. And all of them are recognizable by what lies behind the names and what pours forth in those names. Make God real. If you haven't done so already, I guess you wouldn't be sitting here if you hadn't, so I've wasted my